In this lesson, we'll learn how we can use a feature of RealFlow called daemons to control our particle behavior. Okay, so let's start with just a blank scene here, and we'll start by setting up just something really simple, just for demonstration's sake. So let's start with something like a basic circle emitter. All right, I'll go ahead and switch to my rotate tool, and maybe just rotate this up and off to the side. Now let's drop in just a basic piece of geometry. Let's say something like a simple plane. All right, now if I were to go ahead and press the A key on my keyboard, you can see that our particles are simulating out, but really we have no gravity or anything like that to pull these back down. So really these particles, as you can see, are really built with no sort of control by default. So what we do is use a feature called daemons to control our particle behavior. Now the daemons can be found underneath this sort of a red 3-arrow icon. Now if we pull this down, you can see that we have our basic controls. And essentially a daemon is really just anything that can affect the overall behavior of our particles. Now within our daemon list, you'll see something like gravity. So once I drop this in, you can actually see that we have this gravity control that has been added. And now, with that placed in our scene, if I were to press the A key to resimulate, you can now see we have this gravity that's pulling our particles down, and our particles also will, by default, interact with any piece of geometry that we happen to place in here. Now, gravity is just a very simple example of how we can start to use these daemons, but really we can use these for a very high level of control for really almost any situation. So for example, you can see that our particles are spilling off of this plane and coming all the way down, and essentially these will really just fall all the way down into infinity. These particles will never die. So what if we actually wanted to kill these particles once they start to reach a certain distance, or once they get past a certain point on our plane here? Well, we can do that within our particle, or rather our daemon list. You can see that several of these daemons have this little K icon, and they also have a little K at the beginning of their name. That signifies that this is a daemon that will kill our particles based on certain criteria. So we can kill based on volume, we can kill based on age, we can kill our particles based on speed, how long they've been isolated, whether or not they collide with an object, and so on. So let's say we wanted to actually set up a basic bounding box that once particles leave that little circle, or that square in this case, those particles will basically die. So if we look very closely, once I drop in my killing volume daemon, we have this little green box in here. Now essentially, particles can only live inside of this box. So if I were to press Control A on my keyboard to restart my simulation and play through, you can see nothing happens, because you can see my particle emitter is completely outside of this volume. So what we can do is, with this selected, switch to something like our scale tool, and now we can just scale this volume out until it encompasses the areas that we want. So let's scale that out, maybe move that up a little bit. I can press something like the 1 or 2 key on my keyboard to switch to either front or maybe a side view and get that lined up from the side as well. When I'm done, I'll just press the 4 key to go back to my perspective view. And now, again, if I press the A key on my keyboard to resimulate this, you can see I was actually at the end of my timeline, so I forgot to reset. So go ahead and just Control A to reset my simulation, A again to resimulate, and now you can see that as soon as these particles try to leave this volume, they're killed off. And really this is a good practice to get into, because there's really no point in simulating and having RealFlow dedicate its resources to particles that we really can't even see, or that no longer play a part in our simulation. So I always find it to be a good rule of thumb to come in and surround my scene with some kind of a volume daemon. Now we can also kill our particles and start to influence our particle behaviors based on, again, lots and lots of other factors. So maybe instead of actually having some kind of a predefined volume, maybe we actually wanted to kill our particles based on age. So let's just take that volume, and with that selected, I'll just press Delete on my keyboard to clear that out. So now once again, press Control A to reset my simulation, go from the very beginning. Now you notice that now my particles are really just kind of flashing. And the reason for that is, if I were to go back to my age daemon, we have our life right now set to 1, and that means 1 frame. So our particles will exist for only 1 frame and then die off. So let's bump this up to something a little bit higher, let's say 30 frames, so that'll be about 1 second of time. Again, Control A to reset my simulation, and A to simulate again. So now you can see, once these particles have lived for 30 frames, they now die off. And we can come in and start to set a little bit of variation. So you can see right now with this set to 0, all of our particles will live for exactly 30 frames. Well, that's really not very realistic, so let's say maybe we set a variance of 10. So now particles may die at 20 frames, or they may die at 40 frames, any kind of a 10-frame variance from our main life. So again, Control A to resimulate, and A to simulate again. Now you can see we get a little bit more randomization in the actual lifespan of these particles. Now, here in the next couple of lessons, we'll talk about a feature in RealFlow called global and exclusive links. So right now, if I were to drop in a daemon, it will affect every single particle emitter that we have in our scene. So by taking advantage of something like global and exclusive links, we can actually start to link certain daemons to only affect certain particles or certain objects. So again, we'll look at how we can actually start to get into that process here in the next couple of lessons. But for now, this is a look at basically what a daemon is and how we can actually start to utilize these for some really important levels of control in our RealFlow simulations.